Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another in the series of Niwa author interviews. This is our 25th in the series, and today we are joined by mystery writer Rolf Semprebon. Um,
Actually,
Hello,
I
Rolf.
wouldn't
Or,
I wouldn't consider myself a mystery writer so much. I'm more of a kind of a thriller or I do a lot of different genres.
mhm,
Um, like I just got a novel
yeah,
published, Vixen Outlaws, which is sort of a Western historical thriller. And my other book was which a novella called Triangles. That was basically a
yeah.
thriller with even some horror elements. So
Okay. Yeah, so today we're joined by, can I say, thriller writer
yeah.
Rolf Semprebon. Semprebon.
Although, I've
Yeah.
got some stuff
Well,
that's sci-fi and other things too. So
okay. So a wide variety
yeah,
of
I don't want to get stuck on one thing. I get
okay.
bored with that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So yeah, let's talk about your latest novel, Vixen Outlaws. So that one just came out, what, about a month ago or so in May,
Yes,
right?
like May and late May.
Okay. And what can you tell us about it? It's a Western set
It's
in
a
Portland.
historical Western. Takes place in starts off in Portland in 1880, so it takes place in Portland and in Clackamas County. It came out of a radio theater show I did. I used to do radio theater on Cebu, this one monthly show, and one idea I had is what if at the time Quentin Tarantino was people thought he was gonna do a movie, he was gonna make a remake of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, and I thought, what if he did that as a Western? So I did this radio theater show
Huh,
of that, and then I kind of had the idea, you know what, this would make a good novel. So I sort of very
huh,
loosely based on the plot of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, but as a Western.
okay. So that sounds fascinating. And you use a lot of historical references and
Yes,
figures,
yes, yeah.
right?
There's like Dr. Hawthorne's in it. This
Mhm.
John Hipple Mitchell, who was this U.S. senator. I mean, who was the most the most the worst probably Oregon senator. I mean, in terms of scandals, I mean, Bob Packwood has nothing on this guy. Nancy Boggs is in this book. There's some other James Lappius, who was the first police chief of Portland. He's kind of mentioned. His son has a scene in it, but not him.
Okay. And you're currently working on a sequel to this one too, right?
Well, actually, I've got
Or
the sequel. I wrote this one a couple years ago. The
hmm,
sequel to it, I actually wrote about 5 years before that, 4 years
hmm,
before that, and it was too long. So I took the beginning of that book and made it into the end of this book. And I had the flashbacks from that book, which are now this book. And
oh,
that book I began with a dream sequence, which I later one of these mini writing books I got said never begin a novel on a dream sequence. So so the second book is already done, and the third book I wrote just recently, like last year, because I had these two books, and I thought, I'm going to try to turn this into a trilogy. And I had all this extra research I did that I wasn't able to put in the first two books. I'm just going to cram this stuff into this third book and see what happens. And so,
so are these all one continuous story, or are they individual
well, they're
standalone
all
books?
separate stories. The first two books take place kind of simultaneously. I mean, the first book definitely has a conclusion. The second book starts off right before the first book ends, and so the second book definitely has, there are three separate books, and the third book takes place 3 years later. It's just the same characters are in them,
Okay. So
and the main characters are Barla, the outlaw, Vixen outlaw, and Lindy Sue Hawthorne, who's like the daughter of James Hawthorne,
okay, and James Hawthorne's the
the
one who
doctor
runs the
who owned
academy
the
or
owned
the
the asylum
asylum.
in East Portland.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that from Asylum Street. Um,
Yeah, and Asylum Street's the
your
second book
your second
in the
book.
series. So
Yeah,
yes,
and that's the one I read the first page of a couple years,
yes,
or a while back. It was almost 2 years now.
yeah, yeah. So that one was done. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like this one probably was done about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but and then I just yeah
Okay. Um. So yeah, let's see. And you mentioned radio theater, right? You used to run a radio theater show
Yeah, I used
for
to host a
years.
radio theater show. It
Oh,
was like a monthly 1 hour show. I'd write scripts. I had some other people that would occasionally write scripts. And then we'd all get together and record the scripts, and then we'd take our recordings home and do all the editing and all that stuff. So I did that for like 15 years.
oh wow. Are
And
those
some of
still
it was
available?
like
Some?
parodies. I did, this was when George Bush was president for a
Hmm.
while. So there was these different parodies like the Tragia McBush. So I had the Bush administration in the in Macbeth. And then I did another one was the neocons of Oz. And I actually took clips from the Wizard of Oz. And so I'd have actors going off of like the wizard or what, actual dial things from the Wizard of Oz, sound part from the Wizard of Oz soundtrack stuff. So and the radio theater was fun, except there was a lot of work editing, doing the sound editing. And
Right.
a lot of my scripts weren't that good because I kind of had to do them in a hurry. You had deadline of every month, and
Mhm.
writing, it's about 90% is the editing and the rewrites and all that, and not the first draft, as you probably know.
Yeah. Yes. That one. Yeah. So let's see. Also, we mentioned your novella, and you have a short story, a couple short stories collected with the novella, correct?
Yeah, it's a
Um,
novella and a couple of
that's
short stories. I've also had, well, I had a short story published last year in Journey, the Niwa thing, and I've
oh,
got another one that's coming up in the Keepsake Niwa anthology.
no, that
And
one
I've
really.
gotten a couple of other short stories published in other places.
No. So this your collection. I'm especially interested in what is it, Q d'etat.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm a fan of conspiracy theories myself. So that one intrigues me
Okay.
especially. Can you go in a little more detail about the genesis of that story,
Okay. That
where that comes from?
story started out as I tried to do the national write a novel month thing, and I did it during the 2020 election because I thought, oh man, I'm going to write something about the 2020 election. And
Oh,
of course, not that much happened, and I had 30,000 words of slop, and I just said, there's nothing. I just gave it up because I said, halfway, we were
hmm.
2/3 of the way through the month. I go, this isn't working. This is a mess. But I had this one idea that I said I could work this into a short story, and it was kind of this idea of it's during an election, and you've got this hardware store owner, and this is near the beginning of the story, so it doesn't really give any spoilers or anything. The hardware store owner, who's a QAnon guy, and so he's got a little Q sticker, and this guy from out of town who's like a journalist uh sees that, and he thinks the Q, he thinks it because his town is sort of conservative, but there's a university near it. He thinks the Q is for queer, so he goes in and they're having this conversation and they're getting along, and they don't even realize the other guy is like completely on the other side of their, of this of these, this election thing, and so they later find out because one's hanging out with these uh a couple of this anarchist and some other liberal people, and the other one's kind of with this gang of the QAnoners who are planning on sabotaging the election. So that's kind of the genesis of it. And I was like, Q d'etat.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun. The
Yeah,
sticking with
yeah. I
anything.
like twisting things and people getting the wrong meaning from something. Like generally when I write longer things, I'm always doing different points of view so that you can have the same scene and it's from two different points of view. So there's two different scenes really, because this person's thinking this is happening, this other person thinks it's something else.
So your Vixen Outlaw series, going back to that real quick. So that's multiple point of view, correct?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
and you
Vixen.
have
The first book
several.
has probably about 8 or 10 points of view. The second and third
Oh,
book have a lot more. So I even had to put
oh
at
wow,
the beginning of the chapters whose POV are in it that chapter.
right. And so you switch out with every chapter, or
Yeah,
that's
pretty
when you switch.
much.
Yeah, not inside. Okay. um, let's see. Also, you are a member of Niwa,
Yes.
the what is it, the National Independent Writers Association.
Yes.
Can you tell us how long you've been a member and what resources have you found or used that they provide?
Um, well, I think I joined shortly before, probably I've been in a couple of years because I think I joined because I found out about the anthology, and a friend of mine, Mark Chapman, who he's been a member of it for a while. He's in my one of my critique groups, and he's been in um, several of the anthologies. And I thought, God, this looks like a good kind of thing. And I yeah, so I think I mean, getting published in the anthology is really nice. These meet and greets that we've had recently were really a lot of fun. And I think it's just a great resource for writers just because you can go in there and you can find, you know, they've got resources on, like if you're self-publishing, like, oh, here's someone who does proofreading, here's someone that does covers, people that do covers, it's all that stuff. And, it's good to have, we're all kind of in this together, and so, yes, I think it's a great resource, Niwa. And their site has our books on it. When a book comes out, it's featured, it's on their splash page, I guess they call that first page you go to when you're on Niwa. So yeah.
All right. So speaking of, do you have any other upcoming events? Also, can people see you in person somewhere?
Yeah, actually,
Time
I'm going to
soon.
be doing this thing called Booze and Books on August 16th, I think. August 16th, but it's thing that I think it's somebody from Niwa that puts this on. But it's at Good Bar, which is on Milwaukee, um a little bit south, quite a bit south of a little bit south of the Aladdin Theater,
That's in
um
Portland, right?
in Portland. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've got that, and other than that, yeah, that's it, and then I'm going to be at there's a meet and greet for the anthology, the keepsake anthology, so I'll definitely be at that. But that's not going to be a reading thing or something. But this book and booze thing, um I went to it at one time before. My friend Tag was doing a reading there, and it was a lot of fun. You got about 7 or 8 readers, and they all have a table where they're selling. Each of them is selling their books and stuff, and there's just all varieties, you know, people reading at it. So it's kind of it's a fun event, and the
Cool.
place is really cool. The Good Bar food was delicious. They had a pretty good beer list. I'm like a beer snob. It doesn't have a good beer list.
So
I'm
yeah.
like, ah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So yeah, and I'll make sure to get a link to that in the video
Oh yeah,
description
yeah.
here. Um, and speaking of links, is there anywhere else people can find you? Do you have a website? Are you on social
Yes.
media?
My website is www.ubupress.com. Uh, so that's the name of my self-publishing press. So it's UBU
Oh,
Press, PRESS.com. Yeah.
cool. Okay, and I'll give that link in there too. But all right. Well, is there anything else that you think to say before we go?
No, I just I enjoy writing. I've I've been writing since I was like 15, and I wanted to be a novelist. It's always been my dream. And then, I've never really, I got, got off on, okay, I gotta get a job and this and that. And just the last few years, I said, man, I gotta take this seriously and start doing this for sure. And so I've been pushing. I like this year, I just told all my clients I'm retiring from my regular job. So I told them that a few years ago, and I lost half of them, but I was still working too much. So, so now I'm just want to just write for a living, even if I don't make that much money on it. I'm old enough to collect Social Security, so it's not like I'm gonna starve.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And
All right, well, thank
yeah,
you.
thanks. And